Namaste everyone. Thank you for joining in this video. So I had actually, I had a few queries coming into my jyotish group regarding that I should make a few introductory videos on yantras, okay, and how they work. So I said that I would make the videos, and this video is going to be on yantras, okay. I don't know if there would be a part 2 of it, but in all probability, I'll have another video because I don't want the video to be too long for everyone's liking, okay. So yantra is basically a Sanskrit word, right? And it literally means machine or contraption, okay. And it is a mystical diagram, right, consisting of geometrical shapes. And yantras are primarily derived from the tantric traditions of India, okay. And they are used for the worship of deities in temples or at homes, as well as they are also used as as support system in meditation, okay. And they are mentioned for their occult powers in various tantric texts. And you know people use yantras for protection from negative influences or the development of specific powers through a certain sadhana, or for the attraction of money or prosperity and so on, okay. Now any kind of yantra, irrespective of its shape or anything, it generates, in general, it generates the prana or the life force, okay. Now yantras are not only limited to Hinduism, they are also used in Buddhism, okay. And in Buddhism they are known as mandala, okay. Now yantras, as I said, they have certain geometrical shapes associated with them, and the most common geometrical shapes are triangles, or circles, or square, pentagram, and then hexagons, octagons, and even lotus petals, okay. And any kind of a yantra typically will have several geometric shapes, as I mentioned, and these geometrical shapes, they radiate concentrically from the center. And it's almost always an amalgamation of triangles or circles or hexagons or octagons, and even symbolic lotus petals. Now each geometrical shape corresponds to the 5 elements. What are the 5 elements? Earth, water, air, fire, and space, right? So we have these 5 basic elements, right? Earth is known as Prithvi, water is known as Jala or Jal, fire is known as Agni, air is known as Vayu, and space is known as Akash or Akasha, okay. So these 5 basic elements correspond to 5 different geometrical shapes, right? So the most common geometrical shape that you will find in a yantra is a triangle, okay. And the triangle may be upward pointing or downward pointing, okay. So the downward pointing triangle, it corresponds to the water element, while the upward pointing triangle corresponds to the fire element, okay. So since the downward, as I said, since the downward pointing triangle corresponds to the water element, these triangles, they represent the feminine aspect of God or Shakti, okay. While the upward pointing triangles, which correspond to the fire element, it represents the masculine aspect, that is Shiva, okay. Again, the other geometrical shape which is very common in yantras is that of circles. So in yantras, the bindu, circle is the bindu, okay. And bindu represents the air element, okay. So in any kind of traditional yantra, you'll see a bindu or a point, and this bindu is representative of the main deity that is associated with the yantra, and the retinue of the deity is often represented in the geometric parts around the center, okay. And the bindu of a yantra, it may be represented either by a dot or by a small circle, or it may remain invisible, okay. So it basically represents the point from which all of creation begins, all right. And if you see circles, right, if you see circles in a yantra, many yantras or many mandalas have 3 concentric circles in the center. So these circles, they represent manifestation, okay. Again, corresponding to the earth element, the geometrical shape is the square, and many yantras have, have an outer square or nested squares representing the earth and the four cardinal directions. Okay, what are the four directions? East, north, west, and south. Okay, and these squares, they often include sacred doorways. Okay, that means there are sacred doorways on each side of the square. Okay, and then the other common, not common, another geometrical shape which is not very common basically is that of a pentagram. Okay, and pentagram, as we know, it has five, five edges, and it corresponds to, the Kali, the form of Kali, the if the divine feminine takes the form of Kali, so the number 5 corresponds to Kali. Okay, so you'll see some yantras like the Guhya Kali yantra having a pentagram. Okay, and then another less commonly used shape is a hexagram. So hexagram, you know, it is a fused shape of upper pointing triangle and lower pointing triangle that represents space or the Akash element. All right. And hexagrams, as seen in yantras, they are two equilateral triangles intertwined that represents the union of the male and the female aspects of divinity. That means Shiva or Shakti. Okay. Similarly, you'll see some yantras having octagons. Again, octagons are not very frequent, but they, if you come across an octagon in a yantra, it means that it is representing the 8 directions. Okay, or the ashtadisha, right? Similarly, if you have the lotus symbol in a yantra, so it signifies the purity of energy which is generated by the yantra. Okay, now you'll see yantras and mandalas both frequently using, lotus petals, as I said, lotus petals, it represents purity and transcendence. All right, and 8-petaled lotuses are very common, but lotuses in yantras can include 2 or 4 or 8 or 10 or 12 or 16 or 24 or 32 or 100 or even 1,000 petals. Okay, and if you go further into the classification of lotus petals, you can have 2 types of lotus petals, right? There is the inward oriented lotus petal and the outward oriented lotus petal. Okay, so according to the orientation of the lotus petals, the energy of the yantra will traverse either inward or outward. Okay, so for example, if you look at the Shri yantra, okay, if you look at the Shri yantra, you can just have a look at the Shri yantra in my background. Okay, so if you have a look at the Shri yantra, then you'll see that the base lotus petals are always oriented inwards. Okay, and some of the lotus petals are always oriented outwards, right? And then one of the most common structures that you will see in a yantra is the T-shaped structure. Okay, so this is very general again, right? A yantra will usually have a T-shaped structure at all the 4 sides, and this T-shaped structure, it maintains the energy and it multiplies the energy. Okay, so that is the reason we have the 1,000-pillared mandapam or hall, as well as the 16-pillared mandapam or hall, whereupon the energies are multiplied according to the number of pillars used, as well as the multiplied energies are maintained in a very intact way. Okay, so you'll see several Indian temples lasting more than 1,000 years because of this way of preserving energies by the use of pillars. Okay, you've seen the temples at Rameshwaram where they have pillars in a very regular interval. So these temples have maintained their energy as compared to modern buildings that rough maximum 100 to 200 years only, right? And most of the ancient Indian temples, they have a copper yantra consecrated under the main deity, right? And you'll see pillars of various shapes all across the temples of India. For example, some pillars can be of the shape of a hexadecagon, or some pillars can be of the shape of an octagon, right? So these pillars, they have different significations, and I'll not go into the significations in this video, And then the other common thing that you will see in a yantra is the use of numbers. Okay, and numbers have been traditionally used in yantras to, to generate either the specific energy of a planet. For example, the number 1 represents the sun, or the number 3 represents Jupiter. Okay, or to increase the attraction. Okay, the Sanskrit word for attraction is akarshana. Okay, so that being said, by the use of proper numbers, by the use of by the use of specific numbers to invoke the energies of specific planets, say you can have a dhana akarshana yantra, meaning a yantra that will attract wealth. Similarly, there are other yantras like the swarna akarshana yantra, meaning the yantra to attract gold. Okay, so invocation of a yantra is a very detailed and very intricate process that is not to be done by anyone and everyone. And you'll see that most Indian deities, they have a separate mantra, they have a separate yantra, and they have a separate form. And although they seem to be very different from each other, but in reality, these three are very much related. Okay, so the utterance of a particular mantra generates a particular form, right? Mantra is the sharira, or the adhara of the deity, and the body of the deity, that is. Okay, and a particular yantra that is associated with that deity also generates that particular form. So if you combine mantra and yantra, you get nothing but tantra. Okay, so tantra means the esoteric, the esoteric union of mantra and yantra. Okay, and tantric traditions are available both in Hinduism as well as Buddhism. And in Indian traditions, the term tantra also means any systematic or broadly applicable text or theory or system or method or instrument or technique or practice. Okay, and a key feature of most of these tantric traditions is the use of mantras. So as a result, they are commonly referred to as mantra marga, or the path of mantra in Hinduism, or mantrayana, or mantra vehicle, or guhya mantra, that means secret mantra in Buddhism. Okay, so in simple words, the right mantra as well as the right yantra, if you combine the right mantra and the right yantra, you get the right tantra, which is very effective. Okay, and this correct usage of mantra and yantra together, it is believed to produce the optimum energy. That means that is the highest invocation of any deity. Okay, but then in my experience, if you consecrate a yantra properly using proper vidhi or proper rules, then the yantras alone will generate the required energy. Okay, so in many in many ancient temples, the consecrated copper yantra's energy is multiplied many times by using T-shaped pillars around the temples. Okay, so just by sitting in such a temple, we can imbibe the energy within us. That is the reason most of the astrological remedies in the south, they comprise of visiting temples for solving some particular doshas or problems related to the horoscope. Okay, so that's it from me in this video. I've tried to cover all the basic aspects of yantras and what they mean, and what are the basic things that are available in a yantra. Maybe I'll have a part 2 of this video as well. Maybe I'll not. It depends on my mood and my requirement, and also the requirement of my viewers. Okay, so if you want a part 2 of this video, kindly leave a comment in the group or in the comment section. As always, your comments are very valuable for me. Kindly give your feedback, and if you found this video useful, kindly share with your friends and family. That's it from me in this video. Share the content, like the video, and subscribe to this channel. And I'll see you soon in yet another video. Namaste. Om Gurave Namaha.